When the old lady dies, we'll get the insurance money. More importantly, I'm going on a business trip tomorrow, so get ready. I became involved in a romantic relationship and eventually married Donald, whom I was assigned to train after he joined our company mid-career. However, I was unaware of Donald's true nature. I couldn't believe he could say such things so casually. One day, there was something I absolutely had to tell Donald, but I couldn't get in touch with him, no matter how long I waited. Donald already knew where I was. It seemed like he was enjoying his business trip, but I wanted him to be prepared for what awaited him when he returned. 2 weeks later, I had to comfort a cheerful Donald with the truth when he returned home. Your mother's funeral. It's over. What? He seemed unable to grasp the reality, but I wondered what his expression would be once he did. By then, it would be too late. He would learn firsthand the meaning of the phrase, "Spilled milk can't be put back in the bottle." My name is Karen. I'm turning 40 this year. I work at a jam company located in a rural area. After graduating from college, I found myself working at a company I joined on a whim. However, I soon realized that this wasn't what I truly wanted to do. So at the age of 25, I made a bold decision to change careers. Since switching to this jam company 15 years ago, I've experienced quite a lot. Looking back, I'm satisfied with the way I work. Seeing my ideas and envisioned jams take shape and reach our many fans is when I feel most fulfilled. The moments when people enjoy our jam and tell me how delicious it is are what make me happy. You're still working hard, I see. Mrs. President, I've just heard that the packaging for our new flavor is almost ready, and I can't wait to see the finished product. That's great, but don't overdo it, Karen. This company would be in trouble without you. Thank you for your kind words. Lisa, our president, took over the jam company started by her husband and has been working hard as a second-generation president. After her husband passed away, she vowed not to let the company he left behind fail and has single-handedly built it up to where it is today. I have always admired her and wanted to be like her. In a way, she's my role model. Lisa appreciates my work, so all I can do is work hard to live up to that. Then one day, during a busy workday, Lisa called me into a separate room. Did you need me? Sorry to bother you during your busy work, but I have a favor to ask. I need someone to train our new employee. I was surprised when I saw the person Lisa introduced. Wait, this person is... Did you recognize him, Karen? There's no point in hiding it, so I'll just say it. He's my son. I want him to eventually be able to handle sales and administrative tasks, so I thought I'd ask you. I was surprised to be entrusted with such an important task. Are you sure I'm the right person for this? Please don't say someone like me, Karen. You've always worked hard since you joined the company. I've seen it, so I'm sure. What should I call you, then? At that moment, he stepped forward and introduced himself. I'm Donald. I used to work in sales at a manufacturer, but I decided to switch jobs because I wanted to protect this company. I look forward to your guidance. He was refreshingly forthright, and his clear way of speaking left a good impression. He seemed to catch on quickly at work and had the ability to think and act independently. His experience in sales at his previous job was reassuring. I felt comfortable in trusting him with work. Karen. The normally articulate Donald was uncharacteristically hesitant. I felt a sense of unease at this change in his behavior. What's wrong? Is there a problem? No, it's not that. Do you like movies? Movies? Yes, I like them. I haven't had time to go see any recently, though. How about we go to a movie sometime? There's one I've been wanting to see, but I find it hard to go alone. His face turned red as he asked me out to a movie. Oh, I've been wanting to see that movie too. Shall we go together? How about on our next day off? Great, thank you. Let's plan for this Sunday then. Don't mention it. It's not work after all. I'm looking forward to it. I had never been in a relationship with a man before. My life had been devoted to studies and work. So naturally, I was nervous about the day I had arranged to go to the movies with Donald. However, my time with Donald turned out to be so enjoyable that it blew away all my nerves. We shared fun and interesting stories we couldn't talk about at work, and I found myself wanting to know more about Donald, to talk with him more. Fortunately, it seemed Donald felt the same way.
In fact, I've been interested in you since I joined the company here, and if you're okay with someone like me, will you marry me?
Yes, I'd be happy to. I look forward to a long future together. I never thought that me, a work-focused woman, unfamiliar with men, would meet and marry someone I wanted to be with this much. The first few months of our marriage were smooth. It was surprisingly blissful to share life with someone I loved. Donald had learned all the work tasks and was already working independently. However, I couldn't overlook the true side of Donald that gradually began to emerge. He did nothing around the house. Or rather, he couldn't. Having lived alone for a long time, he had his own rules and never found it necessary to do household chores. Donald's surroundings were always a mess. Honestly, since we both worked, I thought it was important to share household duties to create a comfortable living space. But Donald didn't seem to mind how messy the room was. Before we got married, he said something about doing chores when no one noticed them, but it ended up being me who had to do everything. I told you to put your laundry in the basket, didn't I? Don't just throw your socks in the hallway.
Why should I be ordered around in my own home? Do you want me to not even take off my socks when I come home?
No one's saying that. I'm just asking you to put your socks in the laundry basket. Why does it have to turn to this?
Huh. You're really annoying. It's my own home, and I can't relax. Being with you feels like I'm always at work. Like I have to be on edge all the time.
He would always deflect the argument and become infuriated. Then he would storm out of the house. Once he left, it was typical for him not to contact me for days. The departmental transfer after our marriage meant Donald was working in a different department, so I didn't have to endure awkward moments at work. He seemed to be coming to work all right, but I wish he would stop clicking his tongue every time we passed in the hallway. It was irritating to hear that sound every time we passed each other. It was like dealing with a small child. After a while, he would return home as if nothing happened. And I decided not to stir up trouble by saying nothing.
Hey, Karen, there's a game I've been wanting to buy. It's okay if I get it, right?
Knowing I dislike conflict and tend to clam up when arguments escalate, he spoke with that understanding. Not wanting to escalate the conversation and create more conflict in the same house, I reluctantly agreed. It's fine. I'm sorry for not considering how tired you must be from work. In a feeble attempt to push back, I echoed his sentiment, but it seemed to have no impact on Donald. In fact, he didn't seem to notice at all. He only seemed to hear my approval, and was already meticulously choosing which video game to buy on a website. The way he acted, as if nothing was wrong, after I had been worried about Donald not coming home, and wondering if I had communicated poorly, left me with nothing to do but sigh. Then one day, I received a call from my mother back home. My mother and I have a very close relationship, and we go on a trip together once or twice a year. Ever since I started working, I've been paying for these trips as a small way to give back to her, and inviting her has become an annual tradition. My mother is surprisingly active for her age, and I'm always happy that she readily agrees to my invitations. This year, I thought it would be fun to go all out and visit a theme park. I was looking at the website when Donald came home, but I didn't notice.
What are you looking at so intently?
Oh, welcome home. I was just thinking of going on a trip with Mom. It's like an annual tradition, making memories together. Donald's expression soured, as if he'd bitten into something bitter.
You're the type to still hang out with your mother, even after becoming a working adult?
What's so strange about going on a trip with my mother? Is it weird? I was just trying to decide where to go.
So you'll be away from home for the trip?
I won't be gone long, just overnight, don't worry. Donald glanced around the room before responding.
You're married, and still going on trips with your mother? What about me? And if no one cleans for a day, the house will get dusty.
I was amazed that someone who had never done any cleaning could say that, but I argued back anyway. We both work during the day, so the house doesn't get that dirty. Besides, I'll make sure to clean thoroughly before we leave.
Anyway, about this trip, I never said you could go. Don't you lack awareness as a wife who should be taking care of the home?
I thought to myself that I also work full-time, but realized it was futile to argue further and said nothing. After all, I'm an adult. Donald shouldn't have any trouble managing for a day without me. Then Donald snorted arrogantly, as if he had misunderstood something.
The recently hired Nancy seems much more capable than you.
Nancy is a woman who joined our company this year, working in the same department as Donald. I didn't understand why he brought her up suddenly, but I didn't want to contribute to the conversation, so I didn't ask. Looking back, I wish I had delved deeper into what he meant about Nancy. I decided to go on the trip with my mother despite Donald's objections. However, 5 days before the trip with my mother, on a Sunday, I received a call from an unknown number. Thinking it was work-related, I answered casually, but it turned out to be from a hospital. My mother had been in a traffic accident and was urgently taken to the hospital. What should I do? Mom has been taken to the hospital because of a traffic accident.
Huh?
Donald didn't take his eyes off the video game on the TV screen and seemed hardly to be listening. Anxious and unable to sit still, I decided to go to my mother. Fortunately, it was Sunday, and neither of us had work, so we could rush over immediately. I asked Donald to come with me. Come with me, Donald. I'm too anxious to go alone.
Why should I?
I was speechless at Donald's unexpected response.
Why do I have to go see that old lady? I have work right after this is over.
He was so engrossed in his video game, claiming to have work soon after was just a lazy excuse. How can you say that at a time like this?
Huh? You're saying I'm lying? What a hassle.
Hassle?
Anyway, I can't go. Make sure you're back by dinner.
Was Donald always like this? He used to be a caring and kind person before he got married. And now he's worried about his dinner at a time like this.
All you're good for is housework, right? I don't know if my mom liked you, but you're just being flattered and acting stupid. At least do a decent job taking care of me and cooking.
How can you say that when my mom might be dying in a traffic accident?
If the old lady dies, we'll get the insurance money. Anyway, prepare for my business trip starting tomorrow.
Despite my urgent concern for my mother's condition and my desire to rush to her side immediately, Donald only spoke about his meal and upcoming business trip, showing no interest in going with me. This made me fear the worst-case scenario, getting caught up in his pace and not making it in time to see my mother possibly one last time. I knew I would never forgive myself if that happened. I already knew what I had to do. Anyway, I'm going. I don't know how late I'll be, so handle your own meal. You should be able to manage your travel preparations, at least packing your clothes and underwear. Shaking off Donald, I managed to reach the hospital where my mother was admitted. However, the damage from the traffic accident was severe, and her consciousness remained unstable. Even when she did wake, her consciousness was often not clear, and I found myself constantly unsettled, watching the monitors. My only wish was for her to regain full consciousness and recover quickly. I wanted to be by her side and take care of her as long as I could. Yet my mobile phone kept ringing. It was Donald, sending messages filled with accusations about how inadequate I was as a wife. The messages ranged from wife disqualification to you lacked the resolve to be a future president's wife. Everything he could think of to blame me. Clearly, he was upset that I'd rushed to the hospital without paying heed to his complaints. The messages became increasingly lengthy, becoming so painful to read that they were sent one after another. Caring for my mother, life with Donald, work. I knew I shouldn't weigh these against each other, yet my emotions continued to sway. It was impossible to stay calm in such a situation. Noticing my hectic state, going back and forth between work and the hospital, the president summoned me to her office. I heard from other employees. It must be hard. Don't worry about work. Just stay by your mother's side. Thank you. I haven't had a chance to inform our clients because it was so sudden.
I might need to come to the office depending on the timing, but I don't know when I can fully return to work. Don't worry about that. Just let me know when you have a timetable for returning. I'm waiting for your mother to get better and for you to come back. Thank you. Filled with a sense of guilt and gratitude. For now, since I'm at work, I need to take care of what I can and then head to the hospital where my mother is waiting. As I opened my computer to work, I noticed something on one of the multiple monitors visible from my seat. Our company often rents monthly apartments for distant work assignments. The security is top-notch, linked with a security company. The entrance camera feeds can be checked from the company's computers 24/7. 2 figures appeared on the entrance camera. Donald? This monthly rental apartment is reserved for female employees. Although Donald said he was on a business trip, he wasn't supposed to use this apartment. Why was Donald there, at an apartment that should be used by another female employee at this time? Then, I saw him leaving the entrance hand in hand with a female employee, looking into each other's eyes. Why would Donald do this? My mind was filled with these thoughts. At a time when my mother was seriously injured in a traffic accident, Donald was on a date with another woman, instead of visiting or accompanying me at the hospital. I decided to use the footage from the monitor as evidence, recording it on my mobile phone. This recorded footage might serve as evidence if something were to happen. I couldn't believe that my husband was cheating, and I was uncertain about how to report this to my mother-in-law. To me, he is my husband. To her, he is her son. Miscommunicating could cause a rift in our relationship moving forward. As I was contemplating this, the phone rang. The caller ID showed the familiar number of the hospital. I had seen this number so often that I memorized it. During work, in the middle of the night, the phone would ring multiple times, each call making my body tense up. I couldn't help but fear the worst-case scenario. It was a number that overflowed with unwelcome emotions and thoughts. I became frightened that something might have happened while I was away from the hospital, checking on my mother's condition. Hesitantly, I answered the phone and was informed of an unbelievable fact. I rushed to the hospital, unable to accept what was happening. I needed to inform Donald about the situation, but I couldn't get through to him. Please answer the phone. I continued to call Donald, almost like praying, but it kept going to voicemail, and there was no sign of him answering. Eventually, even the voicemail stopped activating, and the call would just disconnect. Probably he got annoyed with my repeated calls and decided to block my number. Despite being troubled by the lack of connection, I knew I had to do what was necessary. All I could do was take care of what needed to be done. I decided to return home and prepare what was needed. With a multitude of thoughts about what to do next, my mind was in turmoil when Donald returned.
I'm back. I brought some tasty meat as a souvenir from my trip, so cook it for me.
Hearing his carefree voice, I realized Donald had returned. Donald, you're back. You're late.
Yeah, I got held up with some work. It took longer to return than I expected.
Donald, I sent you messages. As I was choosing my words, Donald suddenly started to rejoice.
So, the old lady finally died. You were her only child, right? You don't have a father, so you'll receive the full amount of the insurance money, won't you?
While saying this, Donald showed me a catalog.
I've had my eye on this car for a while. What do you think? If you say you want to go for a drive in the passenger seat, I might take you.
What was he talking about? Your mother's funeral. It's over.
Huh?
That's right. Your mother's funeral. I tried contacting you several times, but couldn't get through. Donald seemed unable to comprehend the situation.
Huh? I didn't hear about it. It's your mother's, right?
She seemed to have been out buying sweets. At that time, she stumbled on the sidewalk and then stepped onto the road.
What? Really?
He shook me strongly, asking for confirmation. As he shook me, I struggled to respond. I was troubled because I couldn't contact you. There are things you just don't understand unless you're the biological child, right?
What do you mean by things you don't understand if you're not the biological child?
It seems Lisa had written a letter. I only found out about it from the lawyer. They said I can't see the contents until Donald returns. Then Donald stood up abruptly and raised his voice.
Lawyer, I can't see the contents until I return, which means?
I'll contact the lawyer right away. I was told to do so as soon as you returned.
Oh, do that. My luck is turning at this timing. I'll get both the insurance money and the company.
While we were on the way to the lawyer's office, Donald was muttering to himself, looking at his mobile phone, saying he wanted this and that. What was revealed at the lawyer's office was the existence of a will. A letter. It was a will? It appears that mother-in-law had written a will and entrusted it to her old friend, who was a lawyer. Mother-in-law had thought ahead about what would happen after she was gone, which was just like her. According to the will, the company was to be handed over to me, her daughter-in-law. Even if circumstances led to a divorce, the will stated that the company should be left to me, and I should serve as the president. I didn't know about this.
What? That's ridiculous. Why would the wife get it when the real son is here? What about me?
Since that was all written in the will, Donald shouted,
Hey, this can't be valid. And what's this about a divorce?
I calmed the shouting Donald down and left the office. After a few days, Donald seemed to have thought it over. He came to me as if nothing had happened before, acting affectionately.
Hey, if you're the president, then naturally, I can become at least the vice president, right? I can't stand working under you, but I'm not just an ordinary employee.
His thinking that he could become the vice president was hard to comprehend. I called Donald into a room at the workplace. Donald, you can't always just be an ordinary employee. Please check this document.
If I sign this, I'll be the vice president, or maybe even the chairman, right? Either way, show it to me quickly.
I handed Donald a single document.
A termination notice? What's this?
As you can see, I intend to fire you.
What? That's ridiculous. So this is revenge for my attitude, huh?
This is a summary of the reasons. I showed him a document outlining his numerous problematic behaviors, misusing company funds, repeatedly engaging in unnecessary entertainment, causing discomfort to clients, and the unauthorized use of the company's monthly rental apartment. I had heard from Lisa and did some digging. The more I looked, the more came out. I know about you entering the monthly rental apartment that was rented for a female employee.
Then it's termination? If that's the case, then fine. You can work hard and support me.
This is not about the home. We're talking about work right now.
Ah, yes. Finally, I'll have a life being supported. Well, it's easier that way.
Donald signed the document without properly checking it. I confirmed the signature and took out another document.
A divorce application? What does this mean?
It's a divorce. This is not as a president, but as your wife's final request.
What do you mean, divorce? I was planning to live off your earnings from now on.
He looked at me with pleading eyes, as if clinging on. Using the company's money to cheat on me so nonchalantly?
No, I was out of my mind at that time, Karen. You're my only real love. I mean,
there's no such thing as a main love in marriage. You cheated and took that attitude because you were prepared for the consequences, right? As I stated this calmly, Donald began to panic.
Don't abandon me like this. If I'm fired from the company and divorced from you, how am I supposed to live?
You're an adult. You can earn your living, can't you? And you think we can go back to normal even after you've cheated? Then, Donald looked at me with teary eyes.
Hey, do I really have to sign this? I think we can still make it work.
I have no intention of making it work. If you don't want to sign, I will proceed with the lawyer as it is. Then Donald, as if resigned, signed the divorce papers. I took the signed divorce papers from Donald and faced him. I'll tell you one last thing. That woman you cheated on me with while claiming to be on a business trip, she's something else.
What do you mean, something else? Don't speak ill of her.
Donald shouted back at me, his hair disheveled. Don't shout. It seems she wasn't only seeing you. Based on the surveillance camera footage, she appears with 2 or 3 different men. You're just one of her many flings.
That's impossible. She wouldn't do that.
Believe it or not, that's up to you, but I think it's scary not to see reality. I had nothing more to tell Donald. I went to submit the signed divorce papers. I could hear Donald shouting something in the background, but I didn't stop. Ultimately, I divorced Donald. The lawyer mother-in-law had hired helped me with the divorce and compensation claim without any problems. Donald kept complaining until the very end, but living with someone who changes after marriage and only thinks about themselves was more painful. How could he think we could still make it work, even after cheating on me? I was curious and asked Donald about it once. Then he gave me an unexpected answer.
No, I thought we were connected at the soul, that no matter what happens, we wouldn't separate. You understand, right? This feeling?
What are you saying all of a sudden? Connected at the soul? I can't understand your thinking.
Well, someone as harmonious with nature as me can understand the voice of the soul.
I wasn't asking about that. If you can betray someone you're supposedly connected with so easily, I can't deal with that. In the end, Donald was the most important person to himself. He was a selfish man who only cared about himself, and realizing that was perhaps the only good thing. All I was left with was the company mother-in-law had entrusted to me. I decided to protect and grow the company as a way to repay her kindness. Now I'm just focusing on work. Our new products are a big hit, and the company is getting more media attention, increasing our sales. I'm happy to have come this far with the support of many fans, but the pressure is stronger than the happiness. I always feel like I need to work harder. As president, I'm managing to keep the company going. The divorce was bitter, but I'll take it as a lesson in life. Donald was fired for his misconduct and causing harm to the company, so he's no longer relevant to me. However, unexpectedly, he appeared before me again. It happened when I visited a grocery store to discuss our new product. While talking with an employee, I heard a familiar voice. There was Donald, looking unchanged from before, being scolded by a younger employee while stocking shelves. When he noticed me, he looked at me as if he had seen a savior and came over.
I knew I would see you again.
What's this all of a sudden? Shouldn't you get back to work?
Don't they need me for the work to get done? If you say you want me back, I'll come back.
They need you for the work to get done? Could he really believe such a thing? How highly does he think of his own work capabilities? I almost couldn't stop myself from laughing at the thought, but I knew I couldn't laugh in this situation. It's somewhat impressive that you still believe you can return to the company without any doubt. I replied with a smile. Who would think of calling back someone who betrayed their spouse, cheated, and couldn't even follow the company's rules?
No, that's because we were married. And you're the president, right? You can make it happen with your authority. No one would oppose you in such a small company.
Donald said this with a crude laugh. Former President Lisa was a very important person to me. Do you really think you can return after insulting someone and a company so dear to me?
No, this is just a joke, sort of.
There's nothing more to discuss. Donald's bad habits were still the same. When he senses a bad situation, he tries to escape by claiming it was just a joke. Does he think everything is forgiven if he says it's a joke? Even if it's a joke, not being able to distinguish between what's acceptable to say and what's not, I felt sorry for him. Still like that as an adult. Or perhaps there's something about him that makes people feel that way. I quickly finished my work and went home. By the way, the female employee Donald cheated with got involved with another married man and ended up in legal trouble. I couldn't see through her, but in the end, it seems like I was just swayed by her games. I thought that the nature of envying others' possessions never changes, and before I knew it, she had resigned. When I received her resignation notice, I wasn't surprised at all and didn't feel anything. Now she's struggling in her daily life, being sued for compensation by the married man's spouse. Honestly, I learned for the first time that people who stray away from the right path will fail without anyone having to intervene. I'm still striving every day to protect the company left by the former president. There are times when work doesn't go as planned, or the reputation doesn't improve as hoped, but I believe I'm managing somehow. My mother, who had been hospitalized for a long time, is finally about to be discharged, and I'm looking forward to that day. the trip I couldn't take with my mother that day. Once she's discharged and her condition stabilizes, I plan to enjoy a leisurely trip, just mother and daughter.